So welcome back to another deep dive, everyone. Today we have a mission that is, frankly, going to take us into some incredibly murky waters.
Yeah, murky is probably the best word for it. We are looking at where criminal justice completely collides with wartime intelligence.
Exactly. And our guide for this is the book Blood in the Pink Zone by Tito Pepler. Specifically, we're diving into part 4 of the book.
Right, which focuses on the hunt for the real mastermind behind the 1985 Zona Rosa massacre.
Right, in El Salvador. And just for context for you listening, this was a highly coordinated, brutal attack at a busy cafe that killed 4 off-duty U.S. Marines and several civilians.
It was devastating. But before we get deep into the investigation, we really need to pause and make a very crucial note for you.
Yes, the impartiality disclaimer. We have to state this clearly.
We do. This source material deals with some intensely charged Cold War politics. You've got the U.S. government, the Salvadoran government, and Marxist guerrilla organizations like the FMLN and the PRTC.
And we're not taking sides here.
No, absolutely not.
We're not endorsing any political viewpoints, left-wing or right-wing. We are strictly analyzing the factual, documented account of this investigation exactly as it's presented in the book.
Just sticking to the facts of the case and the institutional chaos that followed.
Right. Because the hook of this whole story, and it's a wild one, is that this isn't just a true crime whodunit.
No, not at all.
It's really a story about what happens when catching the bad guy actually creates a massive, unprecedented problem for the exact people trying to win a war.
It's this total paradox. And to understand why catching this one guy was so difficult, you have to understand the literal ghosts that investigators were trying to arrest.
The ghosts, I like that phrasing, because the contrast here is striking. You had the visible shooters, right? The authorities actually knew who they were.
They did. They had names. They had a roster of the accused fairly early on.
Let's break down that roster. Who do they actually have in their files?
Well, they had William Celio Rivas Bolaños. He was one of the triggermen.
And he actually confessed, right?
Yes, he confessed and started pointing the finger upward, which is huge. So from there, they identified Jose Abraham Dimas Aguilar.
Okay.
And his brother, Ismael Dimas Aguilar. He went by the alias Ulysses.
And he was the one who actually led the unit on the ground,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Then you have Pedro Vladimir Rodriguez Guardado. His alias was Mauricio.
And Mauricio was logistics.
Right, he confirmed the weapons pickup. And finally, they had Juan Antonio Morales Lucero, who went by Ruperto.
So they have this whole list of guys, the hands, the feet, the logistics.
Yeah, the entire operational ground team.
But they are missing the brain, the central architect of the entire massacre. And all they have for him is an alias.
Right. Just the name Mario, or sometimes Mario Gonzalez.
Which is, I mean, think about that. How does an intelligence agency even begin to build a legal courtroom-ready case against a code name? It's like trying to arrest a shadow based only on the testimony of the hands that cast it.
That is a perfect analogy, and Pepler actually answers that question in Chapter 9 of the book.
Oh, right, the part about identity?
Yeah, I actually want to read this excerpt at length because it totally reframes what the investigators were up against.
Go for it.
So the book says, quote, "In clandestine war, identity is something you shed.
Wow.
The guerrillas of the FMLN did not move through the world as the people they had once been. They moved under aliases.
Right.
An alias could survive arrest, interrogation, even death.
That is so intense.
A real name could not. So yeah, the idea of tracking Mario down by conventional means was basically impossible.
Because Mario was a disciplined ghost, he planned this horrific attack and then just vanished.
Completely vanished. He slipped into Mexico, waited out the initial heat, and then just quietly came back to El Salvador later.
Millions of dollars, years of intelligence work from the CIA and Salvadoran agencies, and they get absolutely nowhere with this guy.
Nowhere. The meticulous intelligence hunt entirely failed.
Which is what makes his actual capture so incredibly ironic. Because years of CIA work didn't crack the case. A random police encounter did.
A total fluke.
May 28, 1989. 4 years after the Zona Rosa attack. Salvadoran police just arrest a guy on totally unrelated charges.
Just a standard street arrest.
I have the excerpt here for this moment. Let me read this part.
Yeah, it's a great passage.
Okay, quote, "His name was Pedro Antonio Andrade, and within the PRTC, he was known as Mario Gonzalez."
Just like that?
Just like that, the ghost became real. The fragments that had been gathered over 4 years snapped into alignment.
The mastermind. They actually caught him.
They stumbled onto him. And, you know, if you're the Department of Justice, you must be popping champagne.
Oh, initially, sure.
But Andrade wasn't just some street thug. He was highly sophisticated.
Incredibly sophisticated. He realizes immediately that his cover as Mario is blown. So he doesn't just sit there. He immediately demonstrates his value.
Right, he basically says, look what I can give you.
Exactly. He leads Salvadoran authorities to a weapons cache. But not just any cache, it was the largest single cache of guerrilla weapons recovered during the entire insurgency.
The largest of the whole war. Okay, but wait. I'm going to push back here. For you listening, this should logically be the end of the story.
You would think so.
They caught the architect. The ghost is in handcuffs. He just handed over the murder weapons, basically. Roll the credits. Why isn't this just an open and shut murder trial?
Because of that exact weapons cache. That cache didn't solve the problem. It ignited a massive turf war inside the American government.
Between the Department of Justice and the CIA.
Right. It's the ultimate dilemma of justice versus statecraft. You have two totally conflicting missions.
Break that down for us. What does the DOJ see when they look at Andrade?
The DOJ sees a murderer. They see the man responsible for the deaths of 4 U.S. Marines: Thomas J. Handwerk, Patrick Robert Kwiatkowski, Gregory O. Weber, and Bobby J. Dixon.
And their job is to put him in a courtroom.
Exactly. But the CIA looks at Andrade and they don't see a murder suspect. They see a living, breathing map of the enemy's infrastructure.
An asset.
A vital asset. Someone who could save lives and actually help win the proxy war if they keep him in play and keep debriefing him.
So the DOJ wants him in an orange jumpsuit, and the CIA wants him in a safe house drawing maps.
That is exactly it. And it leads to this incredibly awkward interrogation dance in June of 1989.
Oh, the interrogation is wild. So Andrade is in custody. The DOJ flies an attorney down there to gather evidence, right?
Right.
But the CIA actually instructs its station chief not to help the DOJ.
Yes. They actively withheld cooperation.
The U.S. government fighting itself. And Andrade, sitting in that room, he plays the system brilliantly.
He really does. He knows exactly what's happening.
He admits he, quote, played a role. But he gives them zero hard confession that they could ever use in a courtroom.
He keeps his hands clean legally, but shows the CIA he has the goods.
Which leads to the polygraph. I have to bring this up because it's almost darkly comic.
Oh, the July 1989 polygraph.
Yeah. They hook the mastermind of a massacre up to a lie detector. And the first test is totally inconclusive. Why?
Because he had a cold.
He had the sniffles.
Literally, yeah. He's recovering from a cold, which throws off the physiological baseline.
Unbelievable. So they wait. They do a second test. And somehow, that second test actually supports his denials.
It's absurd. He either genuinely believed his own compartmentalized lies, or he was just that well trained at beating the machine.
But it leaves the DOJ with nothing. And this brings up a huge philosophical question for you listening. Think about this.
It's the core of the whole issue.
If keeping a terrorist out of prison actively prevents future attacks and dismantles an insurgency, is that a failure of justice? Or is it just the ugly, necessary cost to statecraft?
For the CIA, a prosecution destroys a living asset. It's a dereliction of their duty to win the war.
But for the DOJ, ignoring the murders of those Marines is a total betrayal of the rule of law.
Exactly. And with the American government totally divided and Andrade holding all the intelligence cards, the standoff eventually had to break.
And it broke in a way that left the whole concept of accountability in tatters.
Complete tatters. Fast forward to January 1990, a Salvadoran judge authorizes Andrade's release.
After his debriefing is done.
Yes. He just walks free. No American courtroom ever hears the case against him.
Wow. He traded his network for his freedom. And what about the rest of the guys, the ones we talked about at the start?
Well, Jose Antonio Bolaños Rivas alias Macias, he remains a fugitive and just completely vanishes.
Gone.
Yeah. And the triggermen, William Celia Rivas Bolaños and Dimas Aguilar, they get trapped in the Salvadoran military courts.
Because of that absurd 1987 amnesty decision, right?
Oh, it was so controversial. The courts stalled their cases by absurdly classifying the off-duty Marines as, quote, legitimate military targets.
Even though they were in civilian clothes, sitting in a public cafe.
Right. The legal system just bent over backward to avoid dealing with it.
Which perfectly brings up that quote from Chapter 13. Do you have that?
I do, yeah. It summarizes the grim reality of this outcome perfectly. Let me read this.
Please.
Quote, whenever intelligence value and criminal accountability came into direct conflict, intelligence value prevailed.
Always.
The machinery of justice bent when it encountered the priorities of intelligence and war.
The machinery bent.
Yeah.
That is just, it's chilling. And it stayed buried for years
It did. It took until 1995 for this to really blow up publicly.
because of a TV broadcast. A news program featured another PRTC member, Romeo Gilberto Osorio,
Right. And seeing him on TV just living his life sparked absolute outrage in the U.S.
which finally led to that massive 1996 Inspector General reckoning.
That report laid everything bare. It proved that the agencies tasked with finding justice were actively, systematically working at cross purposes.
So what's the big takeaway here for you, the listener? We've unpacked this deep dive, and it just reveals the incredibly messy reality of history.
It really does.
The pursuit of justice is almost never a straight line. It gets derailed by these competing institutional survival instincts.
And it's so relevant today. We live in an era of total information overload. We just see the final headline, right? Suspect arrested or case dismissed.
Right, a push notification on your phone.
Exactly. But beneath those headlines are these agonizing, totally invisible compromises made in classified cables.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over today.
Yeah, this is the big one.
If the very institutions designed to protect a nation have fundamentally opposing rules of engagement, one demanding absolute public accountability in a courtroom.
And the other demanding absolute secrecy and utility.
Right. Can true justice ever actually exist during a state of war? Or is courtroom justice just a luxury that only peacetime can afford?
That is a heavy question to leave on.
It really is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. See you next time.